With the Buttkicker Gamer 2, what you see and what you hear is what you feel. Buttkicker, the future is feeling.
To be the best, one must beat the best. Ovals, road courses, the streets of iconic cities, race after race, the top sim racing IndyCar stars will battle it out. In sim racing, it doesn't get any better than this. This is their battleground, for the checkered flag, for the glory, for the right to say they are the best. The cars and stars of the Lionheart IndyCar Series, presented by Buttkicker, are ready to race.
The Lionheart IndyCar Series is headed from the Bluegrass State to the center of Ohio as its top competitors are set to do battle while going left and right. Last time out, it was Connor Harrington securing the first victory for private label Team Hype in its short LIS history in dominating fashion. But today, we'll bring many different challenges and drivers to the forefront as we say hello everyone and welcome to the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course for the Buttkicker Grand Prix of Mid-Ohio. Welcome back to racespottv and continued coverage of the Lionheart Racing Series powered by HyperX, makers of the premier gaming gear like the legendary ultra-comfortable Cloud line of gaming headsets. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows we're all gamers. For more information on HyperX products, visit hyperxgaming.com and don't forget to use the promo code LionHRT15 for 15% off orders. My name is Justin Prince. Along some of the booth tonight is Lorenzo Bonter with Hugo Weiss in the production truck for tonight's action. TV cameras are provided by Esteban Bolo at trackcams22.com with additional car cameras from RaceSpot's own Tyler Maxson. Live timing and scoring is available through our partners once more at timing71.org. But with that, let's dive into our Buttkicker pre-race show as we get ready to go racing at Mid-Ohio. Once more road course racing, Lorenzo, in this series, which is expected to bring plenty of challenges here today.
Plenty of challenges, Justin. There's going to be a lot of elevation changes. It's going to be much more than Long Beach, much more than the outdoor track, even Watkins Glen at some point. And it's going to be a tricky track. Strategy actually was a big effect last time we came around here in 2017. I can't wait what this edition of the IR18 was a different car. The track's still the same. It's going to be tricky, nevertheless, for the drivers to manage.
Absolutely. Let's take a look at our schedule so far, where it's been intriguing one. A throw at Homestead, Miami, but dominant performances from one, the only, Sage Karam from some of our road course races. That likely not going to be the case tonight, Lorenzo, though, as he is currently focusing on the real-world Indianapolis 500, but other drivers are ready to try and take that road course victory tonight.
Yeah, major absence in Sage Karam. I know he's that focused, like you said, in Indianapolis. One other driver we previously thought wouldn't be here would be Adam Blocker, because he actually works for as an engineer for the engines that are used in Indianapolis. So he's down in Indy as well, but he actually got a clearance to perform in this round. We'll be able to do the Open next week, this Monday, but trying a good chance for Adam Blocker to distance himself away for Connor Harrington. As you guys can see the scoring up in your view.
That's the driver standings presented by Buttkicker, where Adam Blocker has the points lead, 281 points over Connor Harrington. Harrington on vacation today. Keep an eye on our drivers like Henry Bennett, Jason Galvin expected to take the green flag at minimum tonight. and Jason Brophy rounding out the top 5. But our drivers have a good chance tonight, like Joshua Chin, like Ryan Otis, to gain valuable positions here at Lorenzo with a good, strong performance.
Yeah, and Joshua Chin is going to be a driver that I've been looking through practice, even in the practice server prior to this. He's going to be a driver that we should be looking for, really strong, and usually does really well in the roads. I just don't know how well he has fully performed in the ovals, but he should be one to watch at least.
Taking a look at your team standings, powered by HyperX, as private label Team Hype owns the top spot in the standings for the time being over at General Motorsports Red. Talked to Joshua Chin today. Their goal is to not lose more than 20 points, and their advantage over Graphics, LPM. Then you have Elkintech rounding out the top 4. The rookie standings, presented by Buttkicker, have been very tight. Meanwhile, Lorenzo, Henry Bennett, Jason Brophy at the top of the standings.
Yeah, just 2 points separating the Adrenaline and Motorsports and the private label Team Hype drivers. And both of them getting some good runs in here. I know Brophy's not where he wants to be right now. In practice session, qualify can change a whole lot of their things. But meanwhile, in the comfortable position if we are to judge practice alone.
Also keep an eye on some of the drivers, such as Richie Hearn with real-world racing experience in IndyCar action, as well as others such as Matt Taylor, who have shown great speed. Let's take a look at your series details presented by Minus 273, the premier name and karting gloves, where these drivers will be running custom fixed setups tonight, Lorenzo, with the in-car tools. They're going to be very busy, and keep in mind, the drivers have to utilize the multiple tire compound available for this race this evening, as we are fast approaching our first Triple Crown.
Yeah, we're fast approaching our Triple Crown. It's going to be really interesting how the Triple Crown will perform. We're also ending basically our first third of the championship. We have 22 races in this championship. We are about on round 6, so it's becoming a good landscape to this second third that we have remaining on the championship. We ran 2 times in this track. 2014 inaugural season. 2017 was the last time out. 4-year break. Good to see Mid-Ohio back.
Yes, indeed, and Jason Galvin just so happens to be the only active driver to have led a lap here before. Both drivers who won here in the past went on to win Lionheart championships. Smallest margin victory, 3.2 seconds back in Season 1. The defending winner has retired from the series since then, Jake Wright, back in Season 5. But when it comes to Mid-Ohio, tonight's expected to be very challenging for our competitors tonight, Lorenzo. Talk us through this circuit as these competitors are in the midst of qualifying here tonight.
Yeah, so it's a very short track, based nearly a one and a half mile long, and 2.2 to 1 quarter long actually. And it's very tricky. There's a whole lot of elevation changes all the way down from turn 1, turn 2. There is a little bit of an incline, and then it kind of quickly decreases in terms of elevation. And the tricky section, it must be turn 4 or turn 3, whatever you prefer it, which is kind of a loop section, a right-hander into a uphill left-hander, up and down, and can unstable the car very quickly if you're not good on the wheel and on the throttle accelerator as well.
I think Joshua Chin put this perfectly earlier today, where he described the track being like a hamster wheel, where you don't have a lot of room and you'll be thrown out of the race very quickly with a mistake. The same can be said for qualifying, as we are underway for qualifying. Drivers try to set their best possible times on the circuit. Currently, it's the Sandman, George Sandman, who just got bumped up the top of the board by Aaron Morgan. 107.2753, I should rather say, by Aaron Morgan is your top time, followed by Henry Bennett, Stephen Larkamp, then Chris Fowler, Matt Taylor, the top 5. Fairly close so far in qualifying. It was fairly tight at the top of the board at the end of practice as well, Lorenzo.
Yeah, it was really tight. Basically, all drivers, a majority of the drivers were separated under the second, with a few exceptions in between, although I think it was around 15 and below. But here, I think the one driver that is kind of underperforming, I'm kind of surprised it has to be the leader of the championship, Adam Blocker. Right now, he stands with a 108.132 and is right now in P9, but he still has about 3 laps to make it right. So, can't wait to see what the driver from the Adrenaline Motorsport Power Slide has to do in this track.
Joshua Chin to the top of the board, meanwhile. As mentioned, 10 minutes for solo qualifying laps drivers have to take to be able to qualify their way around this circuit. As we'll follow along with Blocker here as he makes his way throughout the final sectors of the racetrack. See what time he can get. It's a 108.132 that he recorded the first time around. Second time around up the flag stand, a 107.7, picking up the pace to 4th.
Yeah, and meanwhile, also Henry Bennett actually moved up to the top of the standings with a 107.451. Aaron Morgan just trying to follow suit, 107.637. Looking really close again in terms of qualifying, but now there's a slight separation, 1 sec gap, all the way up into P16.
And one of the things Joshua Chin noted to me is he felt qualifying was going to be super important. In part because he thought the pole sitter can go potentially off strategy today with the blacks on a short stint because the tires are expected to have a battle today. The track is very hot, and drivers describe this circuit as very slick for today.
Yeah, right now temperature is nearly around the 120 Fahrenheit on the track. It's going to be very complicated for the drivers to manage those black Brent tires around lap 7 to lap 9. We can see lap 9, the beginning of the first pit service, all the way up until lap 22. It's going to be those interesting battles that we're probably going to have in the pit lane. I know this was actually decided in the pit lane last time around, so it might be a repeat, but who's going to be the winner, we still don't know.
Now, one of the drivers who's performing very well tonight so far is Henry Bennett. He topped the charts in practice. His expectations, though, weren't too high, Lorenzo, because for those who do not know, on the iRacing service, the Open Indianapolis 500 is taking place in the next coming days. And the preparation for this race took a back seat for qualifying for the preparation for the Indy 500. He's been essentially his goal, top 5. He's been beyond that goal so far in preparation in final practice and in qualifying so far.
Yeah, he's been, kind of, I'm not going to say underperforming because we know how Bennett is really good also on the roads, not only ovals, but as well in the road section. The problem is, the Open Indy 500 is so tricky that the drivers are grinding it out every single hour on the half-hour mark here on iRacing. That for them to get the perfect lap, they have to get 4 perfect laps in Indianapolis, and that takes a whole lot of effort and some minor customizations on the setups in between.
Of course, tonight on a road course with custom fixed setups, going to bring lots of challenges for our drivers. Under 30 minutes to go in qualifying, by the way. 22 drivers have recorded times. Top of the board currently is Chin. He's already completed his 4 laps with a 107.343. Bennett, then Aaron Morgan, who has been a revelation this season, has had some quick times. Is currently on a 5th lap time, currently getting some extra preparation for tonight. He's had some great performances, though, have to say, across the board in Lionheart, especially as of late on the road courses.
Yeah, really good road course performer. I'm just trying to take a look over here and confirm if these. I think last time around, he didn't perform very well in the oval, which was Kentucky. He was actually last place. Barely had any lap in the track, unfortunate for him, but he's, I think, a guy that we should be looking for in this track. He's looking really strong, even in practice. The tricky thing is getting out of turn 1 and then to have you braking into 2, which can upset the car really easily, but so far he's looking really good.
In reference, by the way, when it comes to Aaron Morgan, 5th at Long Beach, then at Watkins Glen, a 6th place finish. Had also been very successful in the Lionheart's Retro Series in competition. Among the other drivers, by the way, getting extra practice times, Ryan Otis, who has completed his laps. Ricky Harden also getting some extra preparation for tonight. But when it comes to this track, how do you try and plan this out? Because 53 laps for tonight's main event for tonight means you're going to have a lot to think about strategy-wise, but also a lot of time on the racetrack where you're be blistering quick lap times around here.
Yeah, it's one of those tricky things, Justin, because it is a fast lap. It's right close with Long Beach with the fastest lap of the season. The thing is managing those tires. You need to be very conscious of where you place the car, especially into traffic, because there will be some traffic in this track, especially, I think, to the mid-portion of the race, where you have to be very patient and don't overdrive the car. The car will be very loose towards that latter portion of the stint. So that throttle accelerator, that right foot needs to be on day. You cannot skip leg day for this.
On to the final few moments of qualifying, and one thing to note when it comes to Ryan Otis, got the chance to talk with him. He's felt like his campaign's been disastrous so far. A top 5 in qualifying, though. It's put him in one of his best positions on the starting grid, possibly, this entire season. Let's see how he and the rest of our competitors fare out as qualifying has come to a close. Let's take a look at how they'll start for tonight's action from Mid-Ohio. On the pole tonight is Joshua Chin for private label Team Hype. He'll start alongside Henry Bennett, separation 1/10 of a second from first to second. Aaron Morgan will start in third with the Sandman, George Sandman, with a very incredible qualifying performance in fourth. Ryan Otis will start alongside Adam Blocker to round out the top 3 rows for tonight, with Stephen Larkamp in the 7th position. Tyler Graff will start in 8th, almost half a second off the pole, with Jay Brand and Chris Fowler rounding out your top 10. Andrew Kinsella starts at 11 tonight with Matt Taylor in the 12th position, with Lionel Callisto in 13th. Mike Rasmus will start in 14th, with Adam Frazier and Brian Beard inside the top 16 positions. Then it's Matt Houston and Jason Brophy rounding out the top 18. Samuel Ryman will start 19th, with Joe Branch being among the final qualifiers to take a time. Then it will be Scott Holmes and Ricky Harden who set times. The rest of the field did not set times in qualifying. It's Gonzalez Nunez, Jason Galvin, Richie Hearn, Ron Hacker, Mike Rigney, Christian Reagan did not set times. We have plenty of onboard cameras for tonight, including Lionel Callisto, who will be having the Buttkicker onboard camera. What you see and what you hear is what you feel. For more information, visit thebuttkicker.com. Additional onboard camera was set up for Justin Weaver's number 66 for tonight's action. But with the HyperX onboard camera will be Ryan Otis. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows we're all gamers, and HyperX is always ready to game. With the Carnox on board is Mike Rasmus. Carnox, makers of the finest esports gaming chairs. We've got your back. Visit carnox.com. And plenty of onboard cameras also in addition to those will be seen throughout tonight's action. Power of iRacing as these drivers get ready for the quick-paced lap. 28 drivers, all set to go racing. Lorenzo, your quick final thoughts.
Going to be a very interesting race. Can't wait to see what the strategies will be. Some drivers might go for in the undercut, and whoever's on the back, very careful at the start because the car, especially on the elevation chain, can get really loose, and you might lose some time there.
Competition, commitment, excitement. This is Lionheart, and this is the start of the Buttkicker Grand Prix of Mid-Ohio. We're underway from the Buckeye State. And a great start from Joshua Chin, already leading by 3 car lengths into turn 1. Henry Bennett jumps up to second position, all while Aaron Morgan and Ryan Otis fight while several drivers are spun to the back of the field. Several drivers coming out of the grass as they go to the keyhole for the first time. That was Tyler Graff going off circuit. The rest of the field, though, Lorenzo, nice and clean to start this one off.
Yeah, well, I only saw Tyler Graff's incident, but that was the car just running off with a little bit of a wheel touch. But so far, really clean start, great start here at the Mid-Ohio Grand Prix circuit.
Absolutely has been, as these drivers make their way around the rumble strips for the first time in Sector 2, making their way off towards Thunder Valley for the first time tonight. Drivers have been warned about the slickness in this section, as well as the run coming out of the carousel to the start and finish line here tonight. At the end of the first lap, though, it will be Josh Chin in the race lead, the king of chins, by about 9/10 of a second in clean air. Henry Bennett in second, Aaron Morgan, Ryan Otis, George Sandman, and Aaron Blocker all in the red tires inside the top 6. On board with that, Adam Blocker and Lorenzo. He's among the drivers we were expecting towards the front of qualifying. Didn't get the best of qualifying runs here tonight.
Yeah, didn't get the best run of qualifying, but I think that is kind of a repeat of what happened in 2017, where he actually didn't perform very well in qualifying, and by strategy alone, patience and sheer pace actually moved up the field. So we can expect Adam Blocker, I think, midway through the latter half of his first stint to try to make some moves and try to get up closer to the leaders.
Keep in mind, the aero wash is going to be something that's also going to be hard to battle with because here at this racetrack in particular. See it right there. You follow the wake of somebody behind, it can make it difficult to follow in the corners within a second.
Yeah, and you can see that Adam had to lift up the gas a little bit and not go into the grass, because had he gone into the grass accelerating it, you know it's going to be a trip down into the into the wall, basically. You really don't want to be doing that on the first 3 laps of this race.
By the way, the first driver on the blacks right now is Matt Taylor, back in the 11th position. And one of the things talking about with some of the drivers was, when it comes to these tires, it's about the balancing act. Here's what happened, by the way, to Tyler Graff you were referring to, and what we've seen in the backdrop in turns 1 and 2, where he ends up going off into the grass, clipping a bit of the curb.
Yeah, especially with those coat tires, clipping off the curb is not going to be the best thing, as he powered out way too early. Luckily for him, managed to rejoin the track rather safely. I think one more car had to slow it down, but nevertheless, still on track, still with the car intact.
Take a look at Mike Rasmus, currently in 13th position. He's in the midst of one of the fights right now, and these are the drivers that keeping an eye towards in part. He's on the reds, yes, but the drivers in front are currently on the blacks. And the point was trying to reference was, when Joshua Chin and I discussed things earlier, he mentioned the field between the reds and the blacks has been a challenge since the car didn't lose a lot of pace in the blacks, but the rear end had the chance to have a moment of being very sketchy, or skatey, I should say, halfway through the stint, where the reds tend to have the front tires burn off at some point.
Yeah, especially with those braking sections where you can see a whole lot of smoke coming up. It's going to, you know, whoever preserves the tires the most, especially going through that latter portion of the stint. I know the black ones are really good, but nevertheless, really good battle over here. I think we see Rasmus going for the move.
Make the pass on the reds. He's up 2 positions. Your biggest movers so far, Richie Hearn and Christopher Reagan, up 5 positions apiece. It's this mid-pack, all currently gathered around 11.4 seconds back. Keep in mind, by the way, when it comes to Adam Blocker, as we talked about a little bit, he is currently one of the drivers that are in Indianapolis as part of the Rear World Indianapolis 500. And he, as his role insists on, has to be side by side with the racetrack for the past week and a half. So minimal practice for Adam Blocker for tonight here in this one, as Mike Rigney has had an issue in the 00. He has had to pull off the racetrack and has lost his front wing.
Unfortunate for Mike Rigney. I'm just trying to take a look on replay of what happened, but that looked like all on his own around Thunder Valley. But nevertheless, Adam Blocker just, you know, no practice whatsoever, still within top 10, and with good hopes to get top 5 and then keep his championship hopes alive. Just impressive. Major props to him. And plus, I wouldn't mind having his job.
Absolutely. Trackside engineer. A lot of work that goes into that role. By the way, Chin is checked out by more than 2 seconds for reference. Henry Bennett is doing a fairly good job holding on to 2nd position just in front of these drivers as well. The 07 machine. It's been an impressive race so far for Henry Bennett. Has talked about his expectations, run top 5 with some of the preparation work has been focused in. He called Mid-Ohio like a roller coaster in the IndyCar. A lot of fun, but extremely taxing mentally and physically, where there are very few areas to catch your breath compared to the other tracks. Others have considered it an old school track in that regard, Lorenzo.
I kind of agree with both statements. More on the old school part than anything else, because you really don't have runoff areas like you do in some other tracks. For example, Coda would be the perfect example. But Bennett having a really good start. I think he needs a really good start. You know, he needs to keep Aaron Morgan in check because he needs all the points he can get. He's 3rd in standing, so all the points he can get now, it just keeps his hope alive, because things are going to get more complicated down the run, especially with the first Triple Crown event looming large in a little bit.
Aaron Morgan is keeping him very honest. And keep in mind, the fuel runs here for tonight, estimated 21 to 22 laps, expected to be a 2-stopper. And that's going to make the compounds very interesting on how the drivers, when they get towards some of the crossover points, for one, handle things with some of the drivers who started on blacks who are about 11th on back or so. But as well, how these drivers handle the various compounds when they switch over, when they have to, when they come in and pit.
Yeah, normally what happens is if you're on the red compound, you go to the black compound, you usually loses around 0.3 to half a second depending on how you push the car and how worn out the tire is. But then you actually make up those times basically with 10 laps left going to the sim prior to the pit. So I think there is some good commitment going to the black tires. I'll leave it at the second half. It's going to be interesting because they might go for a two-stopper in here, even though the field will last just for one stop.
By the way, it appears to be an unscheduled stop for Christopher Reagan. He ducked into the pit lane and missed his box for several seconds. That puts him back in 27th position. But the driver who's slowly creeping on towards this battle is Ryan Otis. We talked about him a little bit in the pre-race. Of course, Lionheart Retro Series, very dominant in his time over on that side. The Synergy Motorsports Silver Machine has gotten laps over the past 2 days where he feels like he's starting to get it, is what he mentioned, where he's been making tweaks, Lorenzo, to his rig and wheel setup to try and get a better feel for the car, because keep in mind, he used to run in the Lotus 79s as his main series. He still races there, here and there, but has come over this season to focus on the Dallara IR18s.
Yeah, and coming from a car that is basically the pioneer of ground effects to a car that is more modern in terms of aerodynamics, I think there is a little bit of a change in terms of how you set up the car and how you actually drive the car. But Otis, not just the road evolution that he has had, but also the oval part as well has been very impressive. No wonder that he's getting some results clinging into the top 10s. I know his best result, I think, was in the round that he actually was in Watkins Glen, if I recall correctly, but nevertheless, really good driver to watch.
Some drivers starting to scrap a little bit behind Brian Beard. It's Adam Frazier in the 17 machine. He's trying to make some moves. Trying to get around Beard on the outside. Lost a bit of time. Lionel Callisto also in this grouping. So a few drivers in the red starting to jump by some of the drivers on the blacks. Callisto has lost 2 positions. Matt Taylor has lost a couple positions as well on that compound strategy as we go through the keyhole. And when it comes to trying to get yourself in a rhythm, what's the mindset like, Lorenzo, at this point of the race? It's early on, yes, but it's a chance for drivers to think about how to pace themselves here and get into the rhythm packs.
If you are within a draft like this that Adam Frazier and Brian Beard, Lionel Listo, and Matt Houston are in, if you want to be aggressive and try to get closer to the leaders, you just want to go basically full foot pedal to the metal and try to overtake, but then you actually just put a lot of stress in the car.
Jay Brand in the 15 has just had a spin in the carousel from inside the top 10. And this has been a trouble spot. Luis Gonzalez Nunez from the back of the field also had a loose moment here. And drivers have talked about a dip in this section and ends up losing the back tires here. Jay Brand sent to the grass.
Not surprising at all as Brent goes into the grass. The thing is, you come off that left-hander kink of sorts, and the car just gets somewhat loose in terms of, weight transferring, and you have to go immediately tapping the brakes, going to a wider line, and then have to commit into the second to last corner. The thing is, that braking is what made the car very tricky. You kind of have to lift off the gas, try to control the accelerator, and then just go. Didn't happen for Brandon there. That's unfortunate.
A couple drivers have come in for pit stops as well. Samuel Ryman and Jason Brophy both elected to swap tire compounds. Specifically Brophy from the blacks to the reds. So a couple drivers have cycled in, all while the battle for 17th starting to form up. Joe Branch leading this train of cars, followed by Scott Holmes and Richie Hearn, who is on the move, +6, your biggest mover.
The biggest mover in the field, but it impresses me the lack of pace of Jason Brophy. A guy that we know that does really well on the ovals. Looks always good for good results. He's keeping it up with Henry Bandit, but here in this road course, not having the best of performances. I don't know if he's out of use with the setup, or is it a difficult track for him? It's a difficult track for everybody, but still a long race to go. We still have 43 laps remaining, so he can bounce back.
It's looking like, though, that several drivers that started off in the blacks are not liking the compound at the very least. Ricky Harding has also had to duck into the pit lane after 10 laps. Tyler Graff is also back on the racetrack after losing a couple laps. So some interesting calls from a couple of competitors who may have an extra stop coming in to play here on the tire sets.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really interesting because we see Ricky Harding coming out of the pit lane with the red compound.
There's that they take the short pit stop now and try and stretch it long later. To remember, since the fuel is expected to get to 10 laps to go.
Yeah, so the interesting part over here, in my honest opinion, is the fact that you have to go for the both compounds. So if you're on the harder compound with air coats around it, you can just go for the change and just stay on the rest to try to minimize the tire damage you would have on the red brand. So the interesting scenario is we see another driver coming into the pit lane.
That's Joe Branch electing to go on this call. Many of the drivers, it seems, on the harder compound going this direction. See if Joe Branch switched the compounds, doesn't switch to the reds for this pit stop sequence, and that has been the common strategy for many of the drivers stuck in the pit lane. Matt Houston has also indicated he'll do the same this lap in the 99 machine. One of the drivers going long on this stint on the black still is Matt Taylor. Has been passed this lap by Jay Brandt.
And so there is a little, it's looking like there's some shows of tire drop off, but Matt Taylor is still having a really good race. Still keeping it very, very safely as he comes down into pit lane. Probably will switch his tires.
Seems to be the common thread now for these drivers. The fall off was approaching about 4/10, but the difference to those on the reds up at the very front had been upwards of a second a lap for some of these competitors as Taylor now goes on to the red compounds here.
Yep. A little bit of a wiggle on the exit of the pit lane, but it's one of those tricky pit lanes because he actually is on the waved part of the pit lane. There is a little bit of a slight elevation change in between the full run of the pit lane, so getting that power out is slightly tricky for Matt Taylor.
Absolutely. Following along with Ryan Otis, by the way, who continues to battle on the second place train, and they've fallen off to nearly 5 seconds back at this moment. But George Sandman, give him credit, one to look towards his way, has done a phenomenal job in one of his best races this season to stay with this group along with Adam Blocker.
Yeah, keeping the championship leader at bay, it's something really impressive that Sandman's doing so far. So it's looking like he's doing the same strategy as Otis, Morgan, Bennett, and Chinwick, just trying to conserve the tire as much as he can. So not surprised. They're probably going to go all in the same sequence of pit stops.
Trouble. That's Richie Hearn in the 70. And trouble for him as he tried to pass somebody who was already in the grass. That's Scott Holmes that he's catching up to. Tries to swing on the high side of the carousel and swings it around into the grass.
Looks like he got spooked by the return and just overshot the braking tab. Unfortunate.
There was a lot of time as a result in that sequence. He actually does let the box. And
Justin, big one. Henry Bennett actually just crashed another car in, I think, the second to last corner.
So Henry Bennett apparently into trouble. Yes, they were reaching Luis Gonzalez Nunez, who continues to have a nightmarish time in Lionheart. Did have a good finish just a few days out in Speedway competition, but gets a hard hit here that ends up breaking part of some of these cars.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think I was listening to the radio that Nunez was actually coming into the pit lane, and I think that caused a slight confusion with the British screen of Henry Bennett. Unfortunately, the contact was made, and but for Bennett, still surprised that car is still in one shape of sorts.
By the way, speaking of those colors, he did make the mention to keep an eye on things for iRacing Indy 500 competition, where he is 11th in qualifying at the moment. Chin 27th, Kinsella 20th overall. with Brophy 14th, and Alexis Newsom has been a revelation in speedway competition in 23rd, as Aaron Morgan elects to come in on lap 15, coming to 16.
Yeah, so first guy out of the top 5 coming into the pit lane, and Aaron Morgan on a different strategy. Let's see if he's going for that black tire compound, which might last longer, but might be slightly slower towards the beginning.
Already revving up the gas here. We'll see if the compounds are switched. No, elects to go and stay on the reds. So a quick stop of 8.1 seconds. Mike Rasmus also completed service that lap. Ron Hacker also had to come down to the pit lane, and as DNF now officially has retired the 21 car from the race.
Unfortunate, but that's the nature of the track, Justin. This is probably one of the tracks that I think, if we're going to talk and take no prisoners, this is one track outside Long Beach that takes no prisoners. If you do a mistake here, the grass will take you all the way up to the tire barrier or to the wall, and that is nearly a race done. So unfortunate, but that's racing. That's how it is Mid-Ohio.
Notice you see right there is just continue to stay into a solid rhythm as well. And at this point, it's looking like these drivers may try and stretch it all the way to the end of their tanks in about 5 laps from now. They are expected to duck down to the pit lane. It's going to be interesting how they divide things up, Lorenzo, if they elect to try and go to the end of the tank and have a light fuel load in the end of the race, or if they try and split the run in half like some have done this season.
Yeah, basically some of the drivers we see just going for that one stopper and trying to minimize the tire throughout, But I think this might be one of the few tracks in the calendars in terms of road racing where I would have no problem with the 2-stopper. Maybe go for the black run towards the latest part. You might lose some time in the process, yeah, but then again, these guys have been doing really good up in the top 5 that they can battle it out, even though there might be a tire gap in between some of these drivers.
Indeed, here as we still follow the group. Lap traffic is also going to be big because with the size of the racetrack, a lot of it's being reached, including Ricky Harden right in front of the battle for 4th.
Yeah, you can see that it kind of split up the seas in between Sandman and Otis. Kind of the gap kind of stretched it out over a second between Otis and Sandman. It's now nearly 2 seconds between the number 95 and the number 6 as now Sandman is going to go on the inside and make the move, and Adam Blocker just follows suit.
Nice clean move there from Ricky Harden, who explained earlier today that the cresting hills make this track very hard, where it can be extremely late this car in several spots, especially coming around China Beach through turn 5 and the complex through turn 9 to Thunder Valley, which we've seen some drivers get towards. But bad news for Chris Fowler fans. Technical issues have now pulled Chris Fowler off the racetrack from the 7th position. Aaron Morgan, for reference sake, is trying to get around traffic such as Andrew Kinsella at the moment for 12th on fresher compounded tires. Fall off has been already, for some drivers, almost a full second, by the way, throughout the length of the fuel run.
Yeah, and for me, the most impressive thing is, I think, has to be the lead battle, gap battle between the Chin and Bennett. Chin's last lap was a 108.3, whereas Bennett just did a 108.9, actually nearly 108.9. So Bennett has been struggling with those tires toward the latter portion of the sim, but the readiness of Joshua Chin in this track is just a whole nother level. Seeing no anybody whatsoever in his back mirrors, just having a clean, smooth race, no pressure at all.
Keep in mind that Chin mentioned before today he put in maybe 100 laps in total, especially which doesn't equal the amount of time with how short the track is, the preparation. We talked about getting used to the feels of the different compounds was huge. The race getting harder, the early start time has played big-time moments where he expected some drivers to be limited potentially to 10-15 laps, and we've seen that. Chin has ducked into the pit lane, by the way, so your race leader now goes to Henry Bennett.
And let's see if Chin's actually going to stay with that red compound as he goes up into Jackson. And he is going to the black compound here, Justin. So the first guy of the top 5 that goes for the slower rubber, and will come out kind of like okay, 7th place, just behind Jay Brand.
And you can see how important the tire warming is, and that's been talked about. Cold tires for the first few laps can be deadly here at this racetrack, as we've seen early on in this race, trying to make sure he warms up as much as he could going down that straightaway into the keyhole.
Yeah, especially with this keyhole section where the car can get really loose, especially towards the crest that goes down here on the left-hand side. And you can see the lockup on the right front out of Joshua Chin. Not surprising at all, so still those tires coat. You might have to lift off the gas and just cruise in some of the turns so you can avoid that tire damage. But again, that has so much rubber that he might make it up towards the end of his turn.
He cycled 9 seconds ahead of Aaron Morgan, for reference sake. Now Henry Bennett, as mentioned, your race leader here over Ryan Otis. They have pulled away from the Sandman and Adam Blocker by more than a couple seconds. Expecting these drivers to come in within the next lap or two for their scheduled pit stops, their first of the race.
And looks like Otis is starting to be a little bit more aggressive on his lapping, because he actually got really close to Henry Bennett, tried to make a few pressure moves on the number 07 Adrenaline Motorsports Red driver, but Bennett not phased one bit by the Synergy Motorsports Silver actions towards the latter portion of his stint.
Keep in mind that Bennett mentioned with some of the struggles this season, he felt like he hasn't been performing his best, in his opinion, where, especially keep in mind the time of the races are at 3 a.m. UK. Yeah. Combine that with his other commitments means he feels like he hasn't been at the optimum level come qualifying in the race, and now he's coming to the pit lane here with Ryan Otis. He's done a very good job in having his best race this season here tonight, though, you have to say.
Yeah, it hasn't been the best season. I know it is so late in the UK for Bennett to come closer, so you need that fatigue just starts to kick in. You know, it's not like some of the American drives, for example, in the West Coast, where it's nearly 9 o'clock, 9 p.m. in the West Coast. So this is one of those tricky things that he has to manage, but Baron Henry has been doing really good, and the majority of the drivers on the red compound. Adam Blocker stays out for one more lap.
Stretch on the field, and that's going to be interesting because that differentiates from Joshua Chin now, who remembers on the blacks for the middle stint.
Yeah, we were talking about this, right, Justin, to see how much that tire thread difference and tire pace difference will give out in the black stripes towards the beginning. He might be slower, but as the tire wear goes on, I just want to see how Chin is going to be effective in getting closer to those guys and making those moves.
Also is in the wake, by the way. See there, the pink machine of Jay Brandt. Jay Brandt currently scored 6, has yet to pit, rather 3rd position. Jay Brandt scored 6 last time by. Blocker, Larkamp, Brandt, Brian Beard, Andrew Kinsella, Scott Holmes are yet to pit, as there goes Jay Brandt to the pit lane. Larkamp also came in, and Blocker continues to stretch the fuel tank even further, being one of the longest drivers to stretch things out so far in the one machine at the front of the field. As you see, the pit stops in the various tire compounds now on the left side of your screen, as well as the push-to-passes that highlight. And that's something I haven't talked too much about, as drivers have been conserving their push-to-passes early on.
Yeah, we haven't seen much the push-to-passes usage because what's the point of you burning out those push-to-passes at the beginning of the race, right? You don't get too many, so you're trying to be conservative, and kind of increases the fuel gauge usage a little bit. So we can see Scott Holmes down into the pit lane, going to those red Brent tires. He was on the black Brent, now going out of the pit lane, and Blocker might be coming into this lap, but really good long run out of the Adrenaline Power Slide driver as Blocker comes into the pit lane right now.
So currently, only the Sandman and Chin are on the blacks of the drivers who have come down to the pit lane. As you see, almost everybody else is in the reds. By the way, Blocker, not a single push-to-pass used so far tonight as he pulls into the pit box.
And even in the iRacing Open that he does every Monday, Justin, he's been one of those guys that never uses early the push-to-pass. He's a guy that he uses very late. Like final 5 laps, 7 laps, 8 laps of a race, he uses like 1 per lap then. He's trying to maximize the usage out of the compound, the lightness of the car, and the acceleration out of the IR-18 and try to make the moves, but hasn't been very happy in the usage of those late push the passes. But here, he can actually make the difference.
Chris Fowler, by the way, has made his way back to the track, reporting a potential power outage for that 20 machine. Unfortunate for Fowler, had a top 10 run in the making. As you see, a lot of puffs of smoke starting to pop up, near contact going on. Andrew Kinsella nearly hits the back end of the blue machine in front.
That was really curved for Andrew Kinsella, and narrowly avoiding the driver right ahead of him, which is Kalisto. But the problem is, is those tricky sections where you might go into the reacceleration, miss just the gap that you might have to the driver, and the guy might have to lift. So lucky on Kinsella to avoid a big incident that could have broken his front wing.
Could have been very dicey indeed. Kinsella will also pass by Christopher Reagan, who's slowing down and letting drivers go, as Reagan is currently one lap down. It's been a rough race for the Elite West Motorsports machine. Remember, overshot his pit box and had to back up for several seconds, and this pit lane is very tight, keep in mind. So there is the chance for mistakes.
Especially that pit entry, right, Justin? Whereas, it's very tight. You can, if you misjudge it, it can go up to the wall. You're going to slip the grass a little bit, so you have to be very cautious on the braking. Probably the trickiest pit entry that we might have in road this season.
As we approach midway portions of this race, we follow along with some of the drivers where Joshua Chin leads by more than 7 seconds over Aaron Morgan, Henry Bennett, Ryan Otis, and Adam Blocker here on RaceSpottv and ESTV. You're watching today's coverage of the Buttkicker Grand Prix of Mid-Ohio. What's been a thriller so far here today. Your thoughts, Lorenzo, on how things have played out overall?
I've been very impressed with Joshua Chin's overall dominance in the first stint of the race, not giving any room for error for Henry Bennett and Aaron Morgan to get closer and contend for the move. But so far, amazing driving. Then the mid-pack towards the field is where the bad action is at, so still a long race left, more than half the race to go. A lot of things can still play out.
Overall, who's caught your eye the most in this one?
I'll be very honest. I've been very impressed with Aaron Morgan. Just keeping Henry Bennett at bay, then making the overtake after the pit stop, and actually making the moves to get closer and closer to Joshua Chin. He's actually now shredding it a little bit. The gap that he has was 7.3. It will be rightly under the 7 seconds, but he's doing really well this far. My driver of the day so far.
As we pass the halfway point of this race, we'll take a quick break. We come back, the second half of the action from the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course. You're watching the Lionheart Racing Series on RaceSpot and ESTV. Welcome back to racespottv and ESTV's coverage of Lionheart IndyCar Series presented by Buttkicker Action, Buttkicker Grand Prix of Mid-Ohio, where it's Joshua Chin in the race lead, still holding on by 7.2 seconds over Aaron Morgan. Henry Bennett has fallen back with the undercut strategy taking place by Morgan by about 2 seconds, holding on still to a podium position with Ryan Otis and Adam Blocker rounding out your top 5. Justin Prince, Lorenzo Bonder with you, with Hugo Weeds in the director's seat. It has been an intriguing race so far. Otis currently trying to find a way, taking around Henry Bennett here. Closest he's been so far has been following tire track to tire track all race, Lorenzo.
Yeah, it's been basically a tire battle, and the problem is the track has just got much hotter. We're actually, I think, right above the 120 Fahrenheit. So those red compounds, they might be very good at the start. But I can see Aaron Morgan actually struggling a little bit as Joshua Chin on the black compound being able to distance himself away from the number 48 car.
Turning 108.5s up at the very front of the field. Henry Bennett 108.4s and 3s by Ryan Otis in this group. They have 8 push-to-passes remaining. You see some of your biggest movers and shakers so far throughout the field. Mike Rasmus up 6 positions. Also Brian Beard up 6 spots. Amongst your biggest movers, Richie Hearn up to 19 plus 6, Christopher Reagan plus 6 in 22nd. Drivers lost the most spots, Tyler Graff in 23rd spot. As will Otis go for the pass? He's on the button to the right side, heading towards China Beach. Able to make the move Ryan Otis into a podium position.
And that's patience. I think that is the key word, patience here, Justin. You know, working his way, cook as much as you can your opponent and Henry Bennett and find the right moment to overtake. So, really good move by Ryan Oder. Opportunistic, but the right move to do at the perfect moment of this race.
Keep in mind, his best performances have been on the road course, as it's one of his specialties. He returns to Retro Series competition from time to time. Being on the road course has finished 5th at Watkins Glen, 6th at Long Beach. That's talked about a little bit earlier on in this broadcast. So now, see if he can break away a little bit from Bennett. They're both on the reds right here. Adam Blocker, by the way, fastest car on the racetrack, is 3 seconds back of this battle.
Yeah, and I think we should be talking about Blocker a little bit over here, Justin, because he's been very fast with those compounds.
One car off into the grass. That's Lionel Callisto in the Sector 5 machine. That wasn't going on in the battle for about 12th position. He's working behind Matt Taylor, and again, the carousel finds another victim.
Now let's take a look on the replay over here as Callisto just goes for the braking. I think gets so loose with the braking, and the car just decides to step off on its rear end. But luckily for Callisto, not taking a trip up to the tire barriers, still in the track.
Have to keep his foot in on the exit to be able to keep on rolling. Lost a bit of time at 2 seconds next pack. By the way, we mentioned Brian Beard amongst the biggest movers, holding on to that position on the reds. These drivers, they are now in the fuel window this time by. When do you see these drivers start to come in, especially with some of them going into the middle of their stints right now and others trying to short stint potentially? As trouble for the 62, another victim in the carousel. How about in back-to-back laps? It's this time Steven Larkamp from the top 10.
As we're looking on the replays, it comes out to Turner Valley. We'll go to the right-hand kink and then prepare for the carousel. Left-hand turn. I think he might have clipped the grass, but no, the car just gets way too loose, locks the brake, and once he locked the brake, he was just a victim of chaos in there, Justin.
And he's seen with that wing braking, he actually broke the left front tire rod to the point where it's not even driving straight. He is struggling, as you can see, just to get back to the pit lane. That is terminal damage potentially, as just happened as the pit window opened up for some of the drivers who pit earlier on in this race. Jason Brophy, Samuel Ryman, among the drivers who have just ducked down as we fall back with a battle with Frazier, who continues to have a very solid but quiet race.
Yeah, I was going to mention that I think pit stops we were expecting to see opening on lap 31.
Yes, indeed. This lane is now open for strategy windows. It's a matter of when the others come in. Matt Taylor is now indicated coming in. So has Joe Branch. For this time by Tyler Graff, also expected to duck in this time. Matt Taylor has been very successful on the ovals this season. Not the best run on the road course, and you can see this is not going to help. Skid right across the front wing as he clipped the grass that appeared on his pit entry. That sent him into the wall.
Yeah, he actually clipped the grass, and he was braking in the grass. That's what made the car get so loose, and he just lost complete control. Luckily for him, it's a front nose hit, so that's about 8 seconds he's going to lose effectively in the pit lanes in terms of repairs.
New way on his car as a result, as you've seen the parts fly. He's off and away with the new wing, 13.7 second stop. He was in the mix for a potential top 10. This will lose him tons of valuable time as a result.
And looking here, he's back in P16 so far. He still has some ground to make up. Right about, I think, just confirm over here, about 2 seconds away from Scott Holmes. So he can do it, but the problem is top 10 seems out of reality right now.
See how things play out, especially with a lot of drivers who have to come down for the final stops, coming up towards the 20 to go plus mark.
Yeah.
In fact, Chin is coming up towards 19 to go. That's how blistering quick his pace has been. Aaron Morgan, by the way, has been reeled in by Ryan Otis. Half a second gain last time by from the 95.
Yeah, basically, Otis' last laps have been around the 108, really low, whereas Morgan has been struggling with the mid-highs 08s. So not surprising to see Otis coming closer, and I think, Justin, we probably know that if Otis gets within draft position and then used to push the pass, he's not going to be patient. He's going to go for it.
It's going to be the current race lead because the race leader, Joshua Chin, has ducked down to pit. They'll drive by some drivers who come in. As you see, there was Chin going into his box for his final scheduled service of the race. Otis, meanwhile, we'll see if he gets on the button. He's very close. Last time he got within range, he was able to pass right on by for position. He is now on the button. He's got 6 push to passes remaining. Not close enough to be able to reach in. He thought about it, though, to the inside.
Yeah, but that would have been a big lunge to actually go for it. And Otis is playing the mind games right now. I think that's the thing you really want to do. You know, he did that with Harry Bennett. It worked. It might work with Adam Morgan over here. You know, lightning might strike twice at the same time, at the same place. I'm sorry.
And we'll see how things now go. It was talked about that section of the racetrack being a potential spot for Ryan Otis, one of the drivers who have been daring to pass in that section. As strategy comes in, Aaron Morgan comes in for a stop. Remember, 6-lap undercut on the first pit stop window of the race.
And he has to come for the black brands, as he hasn't been in the black tires all race long. So it's going to be interesting. I know that Otis will have to be on the black brand as well, but then it becomes a factor who gets the best outcome out of those black brand tires whenever they come out of the pit lane and get that thing rubbered up and also heated up.
As you see, as expected, onto the harder compound goes Aaron Morgan. Currently cycled to 8th position, right behind Jay Brandt by about 5 seconds. Joshua Chin has cycled right behind Mike Rasmus for comparison's sake, as well as some lap traffic. It's been a terrific drive for Joshua Chin, and he kind of called a shot earlier today where he said he felt like he had a strong shot at a win. He considered it a must-win in particular, and he felt if he could qualify well and make his stint on the blacks a strong one, which he just completed, that'll really define how his race goes. And guess what? His black tire stint, he was able to actually gain some time compared to some of the other drivers at the end of his stint.
Yeah, basically he struggled, I think, in the first 5 laps of his black tire stint, whereas Morgan was faster because that compound won't give you faster laps towards the first 5 laps. That is normal. That is actually part of the car. But then again, Chin's having basically the rest in keeping Aaron Morgan at bay and doing a really good job so far. And with this win, it actually brings him into the top 5 conversation. He will bump eventually Jason Brophy and Jason Gavin out of that top 5 in the 6th spot.
Absolutely going to make things very intriguing for the point standings. Adam Blocker still in a great spot to get valuable points here tonight. In third position currently, running top 6 all day. Checking back in with Matt Taylor, by the way. He is currently now scored in 14th position, battling with Scott Holmes for position. See from the back end of the blue and white machine. Bit of different lines being played a little bit here. Taylor searching for some clean air in the midst of these corners.
And the problem is there isn't many places you can actually get some clean air if you are just so close to the opponent as Holmes actually now going to be in the fanning position, because I know Matt Taylor will be on that push to pass and we'll look forward for a move on the inside here, Justin.
Taking a peek off towards China Beach, able to make the move right before the S's, given some space by Holmes. Are in a difference of 10 laps on their stint, so that may be part of a factor in there as Taylor now tries to get himself back up to some of the other cars. The next car up for position on his cycle is a ways up the road. A bit of smoke, by the way, that was from Tyler Graff, who was off and away from an issue. Joshua Chin, by the way, continuing to set the fastest lap times on the track for reference sake in this event. And of course, this is a big week for open wheel racing, as we talked about, with drivers thinking about how to play things for the Open Indy 500, for major competitions coming up, as well as balancing out series such as this. How do you try and keep that balance, Renzo, so you make sure you're fresh for a race such as this as Otis is in the pit lane?
That is a great question. If you're, I think this week especially, because you're trying to get within the top 33 to get into the iRacing Open 500 top split, right? You have to find the perfect balance. I think you have to plan ahead. You might have to plan weeks ahead for you to find, a good schedule that fits your mold. I'm going to practice this day for the 500, and the next day I might go grind for the 500. Oh, this day I might go and do some laps around Mid-Ohio. And then trying to balance it all out with the professional schedule, life schedule, and some other things. So it's complicated. It's really complicated, especially at the top level.
Yeah, it can be challenging, and it takes a different mindset from some, absolutely, to be able to perform at this level and be high performing, especially in the Lionheart Racing Series, and be one of its contenders, like you have to be in some cases.
Hey, imagine for Adam Blocker, who's up in Indy, he has to manage, preparing engines for the Chevrolet engines, and also have to deal with this, have to also prepare for the Indy 500 setup for Rocket Racing setups, and also helping Power Slide to get into the top 33, the drivers. I think the only driver I know, Wilson Nato, is in it, his teammate. There are a few other Power Slide drivers in it as well. Henry Bennett is also one of them. So juggling everything can be quite taxing for some of these drivers.
Can be, but you have to keep in mind, for Blocker, the focus is being set towards the championship.
Absolutely.
5 top 5s, 5 top 10s so far this season. And he's in line for a potential 6.
And who hasn't said that sometimes consistency wins championships? You don't have to win, but consistency wins championships. It happens.
Consistency is a big part of the championships, and that's been the mindset for some of these drivers. We talked about it with the team side for Chin. And don't forget, some of these other drivers, such as Adam Frazier, who continues to be charging to the field, are trying to get some valuable positions. Frazier currently now in the fight for 7th, closing in on Brian Beard at the moment.
The 2 biggest gainers in the track here, Justin, for now.
For the time being, yes. 109.6 from Beard, 109.4 from Frazier. About a 10th of a second difference overall when you go to the exact distance. And you have to wonder how drivers like Frazier are going to feel at the end of this race. They are now within a couple laps of their fuel stints, but he has been constantly within the mix for battles for positions all race. He also has to keep in mind Andrew Kinsella, who's slowly reeling these drivers in. He reeled in 4/10 last time.
Yeah, and Kinsella has been actually reeling in quite consistently both drivers in the past few laps, 3 laps as well. So that Kinsella might become a little bit of a threat if they still have fuel to go, because we are actually reaching the final 3 laps, our estimated fuel stint here on Mid-Ohio, but we've been proven wrong already by Adam Blocker going for 24 laps in his stint.
Adam Blocker, going to be very intriguing how he plays things for that final stint indeed, because not only that, he's closing in on Henry Bennett, slowly but surely. Last time by, gained about 1/10 of a second. He has used one push to pass, Blocker has, at the moment. Keep in mind that they currently have Chin, also the next car by, who is the driver who is the quickest driver on the racetrack overall, but still, this is a chance for Blocker to get another valuable position.
Yeah, looking at the time difference here, Bennett has been on the 108 highs, and Blocker has been about 2/10, maybe 3/10 of a second faster per lap, and he's been so consistent in that mid 5s to 087s that it's just been impressive, that latter portion of the stint, and just shows how good of a driver Adam Blocker is, even without practicing prior to this race.
Talk about the skill sets. It's definitely showing a lot of skill here today. We are approaching 10 to go this upcoming time by. And this is for the current race lead. These drivers do have to come down. Chin has already completed his final service. Adam Frazier is down the lane this time. 21 laps for his final stint. Potentially could be in line for a top half of the field finish at minimum for Frazier. And here's the benefit for stretching things. If you know how to balance things out strategy-wise, you might be able to low fuel the car a little bit, as you don't need as much fuel to get to the end.
It's kind of like a splash and dash ourselves, right, Justin? Whereas your car is going to be light, you can actually take advantage out of that black tire rubber. So it's one of those things that if you find yourself in a really good benefit and manage those tires, avoid the lockup, especially at the very first 2 laps, you can make up for it eventually. And I've been seeing a trend here at Indy that sometimes the overcut doesn't work. Actually, the undercut is the better option. So I can normally see Frazier being able to overtake Brian Breed and even Kinsella whenever they come down into pit lane.
By the way, Henry Bennett in and taking the blacks, 8 seconds in the pit lane, so saving a couple tenths right there compared to some of the other competitors. Jay Brandt also ducked down to the pit lane that lap. Adam Blocker, remember, can stretch in a few more laps as Bennett came out of the worst possible scenario in the midst of a traffic jam.
And trying to make some moves, trying to be aggressive with the car, and actually managed to go by one, but losing time in the process. There's one car right behind Bennett, which is, I want to say it is Brian Beard, but it isn't. It's actually a back marker.
That was Scott Holmes in particular, passing by Joe Branch. That was for position, for 18th spot in particular. As Bennett has cycled a ways back of Joshua Chin. Chin currently only 6.2 seconds back of Adam Blocker, running 108 flats on the Reds. Played the strategy very well, to say the very least, as some of the other drivers, remember, be on slower compound for the closing stages.
You know, and we were talking about how good the black tire is, especially to the latter portion of the stint. So not surprised at all to see Joshua Chin being good at it. As now we're seeing Brian Beard coming into the pit lane, doing for his service. He has to go into the black compound, so it's going to be interesting to see whenever he comes down the pit lane. And where Adam Frazier is located around the track, he's right around the carousel. I think Brian actually might be able to do the overcut here.
Chance to pass by him on the pit lane exit, as Beard actually does go above and beyond in front of him, as well as goes into a battle right directly with Lionel Kalisto. In fact, lets Kalisto go with the momentum. At the end of that pit lane, though, Adam Blocker has ducked down, coming at 8 laps to go, and that will give the lead back to the King of Chins, who has been the king of this race.
Yeah, that pun's not intended, of course, Justin, but Chin has given no chance whatsoever to the competition. And that strategy, you know, going for the black compound at the very beginning and making it work, not letting Ryan Otis get closer and him having to drop off at his part of the stint whenever he had gone to the black compound, which is this one, just a masterstroke for the private label driver.
A stroke and then some, as all your race leaders have finished their service. Ryan Otis is currently in the midst of a battle for second, keep in mind. He has Aaron Morgan, who is on 3-lap older tires, trying to keep up. And for Otis, as talked about, would be his best finish this season in Lionheart IndyCar Series competition.
Yeah, but don't look far away behind here, Justin. Don't look on the frame, because 2 seconds behind is Adam Blocker. He's still building up the heat on his tires. He's going to struggle eventually, and he still has those push-to-pass to work, and we know he uses very late. So there might be a chance there as we see a car spun around.
That's Christopher Reagan, who is 2 laps down, 21st position, one of the final cars running, who has more issues in the carousel. That does hold up a few drivers, including Blocker, and puts Blocker right into a fight as a result with Henry Bennett. See how Henry Bennett now reacts. Bennett, 2-lap older tires here, and now has a chance to push on forward. Hit a bit of the curbing, though. Lost him some time out of the keyhole.
And you can see now Blocker on the push to pass, so Blocker is trying to distance himself away from his teammate, so not giving the British any chance to get closer, work the draft, and then battle it out.
Right now, Bennett trying to deal with the arrow wash, though. That's going to be the toughest challenge for the next 6 laps. This is a great opportunity here to try and scrap on forward, even on the slightly older compound of tires. How do you try and play this, Lorenzo, if you're Henry Bennett, then knowing that you're on the older tires, yes, but you have a chance to have one of your best finishes of the season? Only 3 push-to-passes for Bennett.
Follow as best as you can, all the way down to 2 laps to go, and if he still has 2 to go, just go for it. As we see, Rasmus up in the Watson on the exit of Thunder Valley.
Mike Rasmus from the top 7 had been having a stellar day, ends up going around, coming out of China Beach. This is the run actually to the S's, believe, as tough break for Rasmus.
Flip the grass.
Was a contender in eNASCAR Road to Pro qualifying iRacing Series competition last year. Very strong open wheel driver, and now is off the circuit. He has been stellar this season, and now in the pit lane for an extended period of time. But back to some of the battles now. Coming to 5 to go for some of these competitors. Adam Blocker still defending over Henry Bennett. And they do have lap traffic ahead, but they're also, remember, closing in to Aaron Morgan. So this may become a 3-car scrap. That's Morgan you just seen on the right corner of your screen.
Now Morgan is struggling hard into turn number 1, and the gap has whittled down to 1.5 seconds here, Justin. Oh, Blocker is going to come in like a rocket, not pun intended as well. But Aaron Morgan must be rattling in his booth, seeing both the power slides cars coming in.
Now lined up towards the edge of the draft now of Aaron Morgan for the closing laps. Jason Brophy is currently the pick in between Morgan and Otis, by the way, in the battle for second spot. Things closing in and quickly to determine who will finish on the podium. And the tough thing for Morgan's going to be he's on 10-lap older tires. It's not going to be easy to defend. Brophy now moves to the side to let by Aaron Morgan.
Yeah, and now he just reached Adam Blocker as he actually dips the grass a little bit, the power slide driver, and now Brophy is going to be the traffic ahead of Blocker. He might lose a 10th or 2 here on these final sections, but the damage has been more done to Adam Morgan than Adam Blocker.
And Blocker's got 5 push-to-passes. Morgan's down to just 1. 1 push-to-pass for Morgan in this race, so he hasn't have too much to defend with. Otis is also on older compounds of tires here. It's It's going to be tricky to get up to there in the span of 3.5 laps for these drivers, though.
Blocker under a second.
When he locked up the right front tire, sending it through China Beach, now off towards the S's. Morgan nearly pushed wide. And now, both of these drivers have a chance to move their way up into 3rd and 4th respectively if they can time this out right.
Looks like I think Morgan had a bit of a wiggle coming out of Thunder Valley as he comes up into the carousel. Blocker looking like a more aggressive line than Morgan into these final 3 laps of the race.
It's down within 10 car lengths as well. Morgan, this time by a 108.8, but a 108.3 from Blocker, 108.4 from Bennett.
Blocker ran wide into one.
Lost for a bit of momentum, but he's able to send it deeper on the brakes. A bit too deep as he locks it up and misses part of his apex too. See this all from Henry Bennett as he follows along. Still, it's back to over a second, back to under a second, just like that from Morgan. They'll have 2 laps to try and decide it. Did Blocker use up too much of his tire here, or is he going to have enough time to be able to get himself a podium?
It's a question, great question. It's right about how worn out is that front right tire. How much he has built up with those locks. He had small locks, big locks. And you can see slight understeer because of the aero watch for Blocker as we're now back with some of the guys in the way to the back. And now Blocker once again working his car the best he can with 2 to go.
Final few miles from Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course. Still, Blocker, one of the quickest cars on the track last time. Only a 10th gain, though, overall. May come down to the final lap for this position. Chin, by the way, leading over these cars by 18 plus seconds at the moment. And Morgan starting to try and break the draft.
And Morgan and Bennett on the push to pass. Not surprising to see both drivers using the push to pass, getting close to one another. Blocker now half a second away from Aaron Morgan.
Another lockup of the right front for Blocker. Now within 3 car lengths, the closest he's been to Morgan all race. As these drivers battle, Joshua Chin is coming to see the white flag. Final lap from Mid-Ohio coming up. Ryan Otis is pulled away from this battle by 1.2 seconds. It's just a matter of keeping things calm and cool in that regard. But for Adam Blocker, he's looking for another podium. Is he going to be close enough is the big question. Right now, he's still 6 car lengths back for Renzo.
He needs to be at least 0.3 of a second in between himself and Aaron Morgan. Late deep dive into turn number 2 for Adam Blocker. He's going to have his final push to pass as everybody's using the final push to pass in the last lap.
Remember, Morgan had just the one. He uses that one right now. Keeps that distance about 3-4 car lengths as they go through China Beach. But as these drivers scrap, there is one driver who's making their way to the carousel. Joshua Chin put on a clinic today. The king of chins will get to celebrate. He's your winner, Mid-Ohio. He wins the Buttkicker Grand Prix of Mid-Ohio. A dominant performance as Ryan Otis come home in second with a clean final sector. Aaron Morgan trying to hold on for one more corner for the final step of the podium. Adam Blocker with the send one final time. Otis gets second. Aaron Morgan holds on to stay in the podium.
Wow.
Adam Blocker, Henry Bennett rounds out what's a thrilling top 5. And in turn, 12 drivers will finish this race on the lead lap. One of the battles towards the end of this race, Brian Beard trying to hold on to a top 10 finish. And what a run for Adam Frazier right behind as well.
Really good job from Brian Beard and Adam Frazier making it work, that late strategy, gaining some places, especially Brian Beard, 6th place gain. Well done to Brian. I think that is his best result in the championship. Just confirm, I just want to see if I'm actually right. First, top 10 in the season.
for Joshua Chin. Third career victory in Lionheart IndyCar Series competition. Big victory coming tonight here in this one. The last time he took victory was all the way back at Motorsport back in Season 8 in competition. And a dominant performance, Lorenzo, from Joshua Chin by winning by almost 20 seconds.
Yeah, that strategy he had on the first pit stop was just a stroke of genius. You know, keeping Otis away, using the tire that is supposed to be the slower tire more effectively than the proper, more speedy tires he does donuts in the start-finish line. Well deserved, and that actually bumps King Chin into 4th place in the championship. If I'm doing my mathematics right, because Brophy and Galvin just didn't have the best of races.
And a big burnout from Joshua Chin in this one. A very big celebration to Joshua Chin, dominating by almost 20 seconds the gap over Ryan Otis today. Private label Team Hype goes to victory lane for the second time. It's an organization in this series. Let's take a look at the race results, shall we? After what was a successful run for Joshua Chin. Chin, as mentioned, wins by 19.796 seconds, with Aaron Morgan holding on to the final step of the podium in 3rd. Adam Blocker finished in 4th, with Henry Bennett in 5th. The Sandman, George Sandman, had a very quiet race tonight, but still held on to a top 10 in 6th. Jay Brandt recovered from some mistakes early on to finish 7th. Lionel Callisto from 13th to 8th rounded out the top 8 positions, with Kinsella and Beard in the top 10. Adam Frazier finished in 11th from 15th starting spot, with Matt Taylor recovering from a crash in the pit lane entry to 12th. Matt Houston was the first driver 1 lap down over Samuel Ryman and Richie Hearn, with Scott Holmes and Jason Brophy in 16th and 17th. Joe Branch, Ricky Harden round out the drivers 1 lap down, with Stephen Larkamp 2 laps down in 20th, was as high as the top 10 in this race. Christopher Reagan 2 laps down in 21st position, 3 laps down for Mike Rasmus. He did attempt to go back on the racetrack after his incident in the S's. Could only get around for a couple more laps. Tyler Graf, 23rd, 3 laps down. Chris Fowler after a powder outage, 24th, 6 laps down. The rest of the drivers did not finish. Jason Galvin, 25th. Ron Hacker, Luis Gonzalez Nunez, and Mike Rigney round out the drivers who took the green flag here tonight. The celebrations continue for Joshua Chin, and he's bringing some friends with him. As that brings us into our HyperX post-race show, because the Lionheart Racing Series is powered by HyperX, makers of the premier gaming gear like the legendary ultra-comfortable Cloud line of gaming headsets. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows we're all gamers. For more information on HyperX products, visit hyperxgaming.com. And don't forget to use the promo code LIONHRT15 for 15% off orders. Currently, Joshua Chin in the midst of celebrating with the cones at the moment, but one of the drivers standing by is Aaron Morgan, who held on to a podium finish here today. He's standing by and ready to go here in the next few moments. Lorenzo, your thoughts on this race?
Amazing race so far. Again, Joshua Chin's strategy, I think, was the perfect strategy for you to do in this race, not letting Ryan Otis having a good result. But then again, Otis and Morgan, what a performance! You know, even though they were in the top three rows in this race, you know, just not letting the pressure of having Bennett, Sandman, and Blocker coming in closer and challenge their podium spot, especially Morgan with that pressure. A normal driver wouldn't be able to uptake it. I really want to see his thoughts on this race.
Let's get those thoughts right now. Aaron Morgan coming home in 3rd position tonight. Aaron, how are you feeling? Holding on with a ton of pressure coming from behind late.
It feels good, man. Finally get the podium. I missed it like Road America last year. And I never thought I'd actually do it finishing ahead of Adam Blocker. I thought, you know, Adam and Chin would have run away in that race and I would have had to beat Otis. But, you know, it's surprising. But he was fast at the end. He really got a hang of it.
What came down to that strategy call for today? Because you went with the undercut call on the fuel. What came into that decision to decide to go with the older tires for late?
I really felt like I had a really good advantage on the, like, first stint where the track was its coolest, and we were going probably about 3/10 to 4/10 slower per lap than I thought I could have gone. So I thought, man, I really need to try to undercut here. Unfortunately, that did kind of cook the tires, pushing on the second stint to start out. It got me the position, but then I was just slow the rest of that stint, and they caught me up real quick.
Yeah, it was definitely an intriguing race as well, but it continues a lot of momentum that's been going towards your way on the road courses this season, Aaron, in Lionheart competition as a whole. How does it feel overall to have this type of momentum coming your direction?
Oh, it feels so great because I like I said, I never thought I'd finish ahead of Adam Blocker. I never thought I would be a consistent top 5, at least top 6 or 7 on the road courses here, because the talent level in the league just keeps going up every year. And I mean, I thought I'd be getting most of my really good results on ovals and stuff, and I'm not even an oval driver. It gives you more opportunities, but it's really great to know that I've found some good pace this last year in both Retro and IndyCar.
Congratulations on the run tonight, Aaron. A podium finish here tonight.
Thanks so much, man.
Aaron Morgan comes home in third, able to hold on to what's an intense battle overall. But the King of Chins was able to put on a king-like performance here today. 19.796 seconds is the difference between him and Ryan Otis. And now he joins us from HyperX Victory Lane. Joshua, how are things feeling after celebrating with the cones there and taking home your third victory in the series?
This feels really nice. Really exhausted right now and ready to go to bed. But it was a fun one. I didn't feel like the pace was really there after qualifying to kind of build that margin, but I guess I just need to get better at qualifying.
Well, tonight you qualified very well and you performed very well. Talk us through how special you did on the blacks, because you were very quick. You actually grew your gap at the end of that stint by at least a few tenths.
Yeah, after the Monday practice race, I kind of figured out what the strategy was probably going to be. It seemed like you really didn't want to be running on the black tires at the end of the race. Even on a short stint, it was just so much time loss with how bad the cold tires were, and you were waiting 4 or 5 laps, and if you ran them for 11, 12 laps at the end, half your stint was going to be slow. So you were better off getting it done in the middle of the race, especially if you were in heavy lap traffic, which worked out for that pretty well for me. Yeah, it was kind of one of those things where you knew you were going to lose some time, but it was better to make it up at the end and kind of be secure with it, and it also helped to have the car stable and secure under me with burning off the front tires instead of burning off the rears at the very end, which I think some of those guys were probably struggling with on the blacks.
Indeed, and of course, the next race for Lionheart competition for the IndyCar Series goes to Worldwide Technology Raceway. Your thoughts on that racetrack, where it's 160 laps, 200 miles?
It's going to be challenging. It's going to race a lot like Phoenix did earlier this season, where you're going to have to really, really do well in qualifying. It's very difficult to pass on the short tracks right now with the way the aero push is. You can definitely do it, but it's going to be difficult. Gateway might have a little more passing than Phoenix did, but it's still going to be pretty hard. So I think we're going to have to focus on qualifying a lot for next race.
You enter tonight with 25 starts, 2 wins, 3 poles, 15 top 10s, and 12 top 5s. With your first win coming at Sonoma and your first start coming at Homestead last season, you add to those totals now 4 poles and 3 wins. Congratulations, Josh.
Thank you, guys.
The King of Chins coming home with the victory for Private Label Team Hype tonight by 19.796 seconds. And Lorenzo, what a dominant performance by him tonight.
Yeah, what a dominant performance. And actually, he answered the question I actually wanted to do with him. If that tire strategy was actually a pre-thought already strategy coming into the race. So basically answered my question. Great job for him. I can't wait to see what he actually does on the next round, because things are going to get heated up. We're basically 2 rounds away after we go into round 7 to the first Triple Crown event. So it's going to be a really interesting one.
It was definitely an interesting race, as mentioned, next Worldwide Technology Raceway, but I'd like to take the time to thank the many sponsors that help with the Lionheart IndyCar Series, starting with HyperX. The Lionheart Racing Series is powered by HyperX, makers of the premier gaming gear, like the legendary ultra-comfortable cloud line of gaming headsets. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows we're all gamers. For more information on HyperX products, visit hyperxgaming.com, and don't forget to use the promo code LIONHRT15 for 15% off orders. Sim Experience. The Sim Experience AccuForce Pro V2 is the premier professional simulation racing steering system. The key to its incredible realism is the groundbreaking direct drive motor control system, providing a driving experience that's second only to the real thing. For more information on the entire Sim Experience ecosystem, visit simexperience.com. Minus 273 is the premier name in karting gloves. Their industry-leading gloves are super lightweight and durable, made of breathable polyspandex. Whether you're a kart or sim racer, Minus 273 gives you the control to reach victory lane. For more information on Minus 273's full line of gloves and apparel, visit minus273.biz, and don't forget to also use Minus 273 LHRS15 for 15% off orders. The DMLC Racing Channel. Looking for entertaining sim racing content? Look no further than the DMLC Racing Channel. Follow former Lionheart Retro Series Driver of the Year Mark Cohn's racing escapades as he battles for wins and avoids wrecks with cat-like reflexes, all while providing commentary sure to make you laugh, cry, or both. Follow along by subscribing to the DMLC Racing Channel on YouTube and like his Facebook page at the DMLC Racing Channel. And it's not just those names, but many more and all the partners at the Lionheart Racing Series. To learn about them, visit lionheartracingseries.com. You can also find out more information on the 3 competitions that the Lionheart sanctioning body runs. Lots more Lionheart competition to come. To follow along with the action, be sure to keep up with Lionheart on social media at Lionheart Series. ESTV also has your esports needs, while RaceSpot has your V Motorsports action covered. Be sure to follow along on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and more. Also, be sure to hit the YouTube subscribe button and the notification bell as well to keep up with all the sim racing action we get to cover on a week-to-week basis. The next time the Lionheart Racing Series hits the track for its IndyCar Series will be at Worldwide Technology Raceway on June the 2nd. Be sure to tune in on racespottv at 10:35 p.m. Eastern Time once more on June the 2nd for the Asher's Racing Channel 200 at Gateway. But it's time to say goodbye. For my broadcast partner, Renzo Bonder, for our producer, Hugo Wees, I'm Justin Prince saying so long. Enjoy the rest of your night. Congratulations to Joshua Chin, your winner at Mid-Ohio.